Stu here with my lovely wife, Amy, and we have just recently completed, which is arguably one of the hardest things that we have ever done together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was, we climbed the equivalent of Mount Everest in less than 36 hours. It was all part of something called the 29029 Everesting Challenge. And essentially the way it works is this company rents out a ski mountain.
Yeah.
And you
get to climb off the mountain.
You get to climb up the mountain. So in our case, we were at Stratton Mountain in Vermont.
Yeah.
And we needed to climb this mountain 17 times in the span of 36 hours, which would be the equivalent of climbing Mount Everest.
In the rain, in the mud. I'm just laughing because we're on Instagram too. And someone just said, you guys both look so rejuvenated. Thank you. We did. So this was on the weekend and we just are coming off 4 or 5 days of spa,
just chilling out,
sleeping, reading, doing nothing. And it's felt amazing. So,
okay.
Thank you.
So let's talk about the challenge. How did it come to be? Well, you want to kind of tell the story?
Sure. So Stu wanted to do something for his 40th birthday.
Well, you asked me. You said, what do you want to do for your 40th? This was last year.
This was last year. And we're big as a family on experiences and doing things together, doing hard things, traveling to like unique places. And so we found this challenge through friends and you said you wanted to do it. And
said, and how did you feel when I said that I wanted to do this?
I said, I don't know. Because I love working out. I'm on the bike quite a bit. I enjoy hiking, but
this was out of your comfort zone.
This was a little out of my comfort zone, but you wanted to do it.
I really wanted to do it. And then last year it got canceled because of COVID. So it got moved to this year. Yeah. And it was actually kind of a good thing because we had more time to prep.
Yeah.
And how did you feel in terms of preparation going into this? Because they recommended quite a rigorous workout.
They did. And like, to be completely transparent, we did not open the training guide until 4 weeks before.
Yeah, that was a mistake.
Yeah, we should have probably done a bit more, but we are pretty active ourselves. Like you probably a bit more than myself.
Yeah.
Like in riding the bike, we walk our kids to school back and forth, and that's 8K a day. So we do lots of physical activity, but we didn't. And I kind of freaked out when we opened it because I was like,
because it was pretty intense.
Oh, I'm like, we're not ready for this. I'm like, we haven't been doing all of this training. So then we slowly
definitely picked up the pace. You started riding longer. You started doing more.
I had to pick it up a little bit. You were fine.
So going into it, how did you feel in terms of confidence that you'd be able to complete it?
I didn't think I was going to be able to. I was really worried that I wouldn't be able to. So we actually, before going into it, we set a goal with ourselves. We said, if I don't keep in a certain time frame,
because we wanted, because we wanted to do this together.
Yeah, we wanted to do it together. Like we signed up together. We wanted to do it together. And just, Stu is you're more active than I am. You're stronger than I am and especially in endurance, stuff like that. So I said, I wanted to do it with you, but I don't want to hold you back from achieving it.
Yeah, you were really paranoid and concerned about that.
Well, I didn't want to hold you back on the mountain. So we made an agreement. We said, if I can get up within an hour and a half or an hour and 15 and down then, and I could keep that pace, we would complete it and together, and that would be fine. But if I started to fall behind and not in that pace, and it wouldn't look like we would be able to complete it, then at that point.
I will tell you, this is definitely, and we're going to get to the 12 lessons because we have 12 lessons that we want to share. And if you guys have questions, by the way, let us know in the comments because we'll certainly answer some of those as we go along. But going into it, this was the one area that actually made me the most anxious because I wanted I wanted to complete this together. And I felt like we were baking in excuses and reasons to not do that before we had even gotten started. So this was definitely like high on my concern list. And we'll kind of talk a little bit about that with one of the lessons. But so essentially this was it going in.
Yeah. And I mean, if people saw your stories, that, I was happy to be there, but I wasn't over the moon excited to be there. This is not like my thing. And I had a few people say that I didn't, in your stories you were posting it. I like some of them you'd see me smiling, and some of them I looked really pissed
No.
off. Like,
I
was angry.
I don't think that you were smiling and in any of them until the last summit.
Right. Who does? That's when you smile. It's over. But no, I did. It was like, I did really enjoy it, but there were moments when I hated it. And there were moments that you said.
Okay. So I have to ask you before we get into the lessons, like somebody's going to ask, like, why would you even commit to doing something that you were hating?
Well, I committed to it. Well, there's two reasons. The first reason was, I believe as a couple, it's so important to have your own thing and your things that you do together. And then sometimes it's important to do things that are hard in a relationship together. I think that enhances the relationship and you learn more about each other. And
so this wasn't about like, getting to the top.
It was when we were about halfway through, because at one point when I wanted to quit, all I could think about was like, I'd swear right now, but I'm like, Stu cannot go home to our kids today with a red hat and not me. Like, how does that show up for my daughter? Like, I want my daughter to see that I can do the same things as dad. And mom didn't quit. She did the same thing as dad did.
So for you,
I was determined not to.
So for you in the beginning, it was about like the motivation to do something together, something challenging together. And then partway through, the motivation shifted to, I don't want to be the one that quit.
Yeah. More for our family, to show my kids that, I talk about that in my book, and showing them what's possible in life. And it's like, I didn't want to be the one to go home and to not do it when I knew that I could. It was more of a.
I just got to say hello to everybody. We got Instagram over here, Facebook and YouTube over here. So you guys are amazing. Thank you for all your comments, and we'll certainly get to some of the questions that you've got. Okay, so let's get into the 12 lessons. We got the 12 lessons. First one, lesson number 1 is we grow when we do hard things. Yes. One of the things that I love to do every year is to find something that is going to challenge me. I love feeling fear and then pushing through that anyway. And I think as an entrepreneur, this is really important that you seek out these opportunities, because it's inevitable. In running a business, you are going to face moments of fear where you are uncertain. You don't know how things are going to play out, and it can get scary. And oftentimes that fear can hold you back from moving forward. So one of the things that I love to do is I love to seek out opportunities where I know I'm going to be scared, and so that I can develop the muscle of pushing through that fear anyway. So this was definitely one of those things. And we both said, and I'm hoping you can kind of comment on this, Amy, like afterwards, like we felt different from this experience, right?
Yeah, it's like, it's like when we did skydiving together. Like when we did the skydiving and we jumped out, it's like when I rode my motorcycle across Morocco. It's like when you accomplish those things that are really hard and really push you, you feel like there's so much more that's possible. You're like, if I could do that, like,
what else is possible?
What else could I do? Totally. I could do like so many more things because I just did that. And it's kind of like an addictive feeling of getting to that. It's like when you're at the gym and you don't want to go to the gym and you don't want to get on the bike, but then when you get off the bike, you feel so good. It's the same thing.
And we both feel different from this experience. Like we both are thinking bigger. We're energized. We're excited about life and business and accomplishing more. Like we've come out of this after accomplishing this, feeling so much more fired up.
Yeah.
So lesson number 1 is we grow when we do hard things. And my encouragement to you is to seek out those hard things to do.
Don't shy away from them. You ought to seek them out.
Seek them out. Okay, so that's number 1.
All right, number 2.
Number 2, you want to hit this one up?
Look for opportunities to grow together.
And you kind of alluded to this earlier, but kind of expand on it.
Like to grow, it's in a relationship, like we've been married now almost 15 years, together like 20. And I think it's so healthy in a relationship to look for things to do together as a couple. Like it's great to have your own thing, but it's so important, I think, just to do things together as a couple, not with all the kids in tow, just the two of you. Just together. But then I think also, like, not only just as a couple, I think it's also as maybe a team in a business or a directing team, or like, a certain
well, and it's great that you pointed that out, because what it was, one of the first things that you and I talked about afterwards was like, I want to do this experience with others,
Yes.
you know, because I loved doing it with you. And this was key because as we mentioned,
you didn't love doing it with me when I was complaining a little bit.
Well, that's true. We had to have some mindset shifts.
At one point, a lot of.
But we work together as a team, and I think this is the other thing we should talk about because, as Amy mentioned, like I was definitely faster going up, and we figured out a rhythm together to make it work.
Someone just says, "How did you keep the momentum going?" So we actually had a routine, and it sounds. It's not really cheesy, but it's our plan. And so because Stu was faster than me, he would, there was like 2 sections of the race or 2 sections of the mountain. And that first section, he would always go ahead of me up to the aid station, grab some salt pills, water, snacks, whatever. And then I would come up and he would get them for me. We would eat them. We would keep going. And then he would leave me again and he would go up to the top and then he would make me a cup of tea for the top, but no dairy because apparently dairy isn't good. And then he would get the snacks and we'd eat the snacks on the way down in the gondola. So that was our strategy for about 10, 11 or 12 runs. And
it worked well because like you and I would both get into our own zones, right? Yeah. Like I would put my music on, you would put your music on. And so we weren't doing a lot of talking anyway.
No.
But it gave me the chance to like, you know, power through, so to speak, and then get things prepped. So when you got there.
Yeah. And then talk to people on the mountain too. That was always great hearing people's stories, but that did change. So the last few that we did were really hard and it rained and the terrain.
We'll get to that.
So it took longer.
So the first part was we definitely worked together,
yes.
Which was awesome. But then I knew that there was a point when I couldn't do that anymore because things were getting really hard.
Yes.
We were slowing down. What would normally take us like an hour to get to the top was taking us now like going on 2 hours.
It's taking us a long time. And there was a lot of rain.
And it started to rain like hard. Like we got soaked, completely soaked. Yeah, and the negative chatter started to creep in. Wow. For both of us.
And we both said we should have taken video. I should have taken a video at that point because at that point I was really pissed off.
You were angry.
Because I was wet.
You were not liking me at that point.
I'm like, we could have gone to Tahiti and stayed in a bungalow, and here I am climbing a mountain.
You're like, this sucks. And I remember saying to one of the coaches at the aid station, like when it was really pouring and it was like the mountain was just messy and it was muddy. I remember saying to one of the coaches as you were coming up, I'm like, I think this could be the nail in the coffin. And he's like, no. So at that point, I stopped going ahead and you and I stayed together.
Yeah.
And
that was kind of good for that last part.
Yeah, it was good for like the last 6. And we just stayed together at that point. We went really slow. We took our time.
I went slow and you came with me.
Yeah. And we had, but to the point though, it was an opportunity to grow together
and
to push through that
and to push through together and do it together for sure. So what's your...
Okay. So number 1, we grow when we do hard things. Number 2, look for opportunities to grow together. And what I would say is look for opportunities with your spouse or your partner. Look for opportunities to grow with your team. Look for opportunities to grow with close friends. Like experiences like this deepen the bond. And, you know, we had some friends of ours that joined us on this as well, which was amazing and similar, like sharing that experience with them. Shout out to Jamie and Angie and Summer, like sharing that experience with them. It like deepens the bond because you push through that struggle together. Okay. Number 3.
This is my favorite when we talked about it. Slow progress is still progress. And this is something Jesse talked about.
Jesse Itzler, who's one of the founders of the whole experience.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, at the end of the day, it's slow progress is still progress. Like we are still making progress. Even though at the end I was going up and it was really slow. Every time I put one step in front of the other, we were still making progress to get to the top.
Yeah, this was a huge thing because what we discovered in this whole experience was there was really 2 strategies, right, to accomplish this. Strategy 1 was to kind of what we did, where we banked as, you know, we made some really good time on that first day. Yeah. And we got a whole bunch in, and we had a little more flexibility in terms of schedule, which we utilized, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then that gave us time on the second day you know, given that we slowed down and things got harder, we still had that
gave
time.
some time to not panic that you wouldn't.
So that was strategy one. Strategy two was like to just go really slow right from the get-go. But then that meant that you had to keep going. Like you could not stop. Like you had to go all through the night. And there were people that literally finished like a few minutes before the deadline, but they were just slow and steady. They just kept on moving.
But and that's what's amazing about the race is it's like for anybody you could do it. Anybody could do it because the pace that some of the others were going at,
even us at the end,
like it's slow. But if you just commit and commit and one foot in front of the other. And one thing I love that they said, which is so true, is like you just have to turn right and keep going up the mountain because nobody ever starts walking up the mountain and then turns around and comes back down, right? Nobody turns around and goes, oh, I'm not going to do it today. Like that just doesn't happen. So as soon as you're on it, you're going to finish it. It's just a matter of time as how long it'll take you.
So here's how this relates to business and life. Like many times we think that we're not making real progress if we're not like, you know, getting and achieving results like instantly and boom, 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 boom. But what we learned from this, and we said this to each other over and over again, was that this whole slow progress is still progress is so incredibly important because it felt like in the end, we were going up that mountain at a snail's pace.
Well, I think that I felt like it was slow, but you probably
it
felt
was
like
slow.
it was really slow.
It was like double the time that we were doing the day before. But to that point though, we were still making it up.
Yeah.
And I want to say this to everybody is that, you know, standing still is the worst thing that you could do. You just got to keep moving forward. And that was definitely a mantra that we had, you know, ringing in our minds. And slow progress is still progress. That's lesson number 3. Okay. Lesson number 4, lean on the experiences of others. This came into play in 2 different times. The first was the night before. Like Amy and I had kind of figured out like what our plan was going to be. And our plan was we were going to try to get 10 climbs in on that first day. And then we were going to break for the night and have some rest and then get up the next morning and bang out the next 7. And we felt confident in that, right?
Yeah, we felt that was pretty good.
So we were sharing this with Jesse Itzler the night before. And he kind of looked at us and he kind of said, well, I'd encourage you to get as many in as you can on that first day. Don't stop.
Just do one more. What was it?
Yeah, he said when you feel like stopping, just do at least one more. And he said, because the other thing that you got to factor in here is he said, you're going to get tired. And he said, and number 2, the weather looks really bad.
The weather really changed
on day number 2. He said, so just like bank as much as you can on that first day. And we kind of got nervous about that. Then we were like, oh gosh,
the weather and the forecast was changing all the time. It was starting to get cold and just a lot of rain and wind. Yeah.
So we were a little bit, so we're like, okay, so that first day we did. I mean, we went, you were unbelievable. You were flying up the mountain. Like we got to the top and we were just like, dang, like, you know, we're cruising and we were on pace. And in my mind, I'm doing the math of how many, you know, what time we got to hit. And I'm like, yes, like we're flying. And then, so we got 11 in the bank and we were aiming for 10. We got 11 and we were about to go for our 12th.
Yeah.
And then it started pouring. And like it got really raining.
And the temperature dropped and it got so cold. And I had my rain jacket on. We changed and put some dry clothes on, put on my rain jacket. And I said at the bottom, I was like, Stu, I'm still cold. And I know if I'm cold now and I haven't even started hiking and it's pouring.
And the temperature's still dropping.
It's going to get worse. And that's, I don't know if you talk about it on your list, but that was one thing that Jesse said with the experience of others was like, don't let little problems become big problems. And at that point, it was a little problem, right? I think if we had hiked that night with how cold I was already feeling at the bottom, I would have gotten sick or it just wouldn't have been good for my body.
Because it got windier and windier and colder as you went up the mountain.
And the rain, and you're in the lights, right? And you can hardly see the ground. And
so
it wasn't very good.
So we leaned on Jesse's experience with that. And similarly, there was another woman, Rebecca, because at that point, like we went in to grab something to eat. And there was another woman, Rebecca, who had done this before. And I was concerned, you know, that we weren't going to be able to have time to be able to get the other summits in the next day. And she said, look, you're totally fine. She said, go and rest. She said, you're going to feel so much better the next day. And that's what we did. And, you know, sometimes like you have to rely on the experience of others,
and
right?
You have to let experience others, and you have to listen to your body, right? Like my body was saying no, and not no in a way that it's like you're tired and you just can't do it or you're out of gas. It was like, no, like my intuition and my, you know, I felt really cold and damp, and I had changed already and I had 4 layers on. And then, like they said, it's like I'd be hiking up and then I'll start sweating, and then sweat, they kept saying, which is so true, sweat is like your enemy, right? Like we changed so many times because the last thing you want to do is be sweaty and cold, and then those little problems become bigger problems.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
Prevent you. Sorry.
Okay,
Let's
so lean on the experience of others. That definitely played a big role for us on multiple occasions. Shout out to Jesse Itzler. Shout out to Rebecca, who both guided us in those moments. And helped us stay on track.
And all their staff in the event. Like they had
Totally.
Great coaches there from mindset, equipment suggestions, what to wear.
The volunteers, who many of them were, you know, alumni. So yeah, it was highly recommend. And I mean, and isn't this true in all facets of life? It's not to say that we're going to take every piece of advice that we receive and you be able to utilize it. But at the same time, like, when others have already gone through something that you're going through, like you've got to listen. You got to open your mind. You got to open your heart. You got to listen to the experience of others. And so that was a big lesson for us. Okay. Number 5 on our lessons was expect the unexpected. So as much as we had planned and as much as we felt prepared, there were still a whole lot of things that came up that we had no idea about. And the fact that we, you know, I felt we would have been faster on the second day, but we were like way slower than I thought. We were way more tired than I thought. The weather really played a huge part in it.
I think if the weather wasn't bad that night, we would have done a couple more. And I think even that day, I mean, we got soaked the second day and it was cold.
Yeah, we got soaked. And then the other thing that I would say that we didn't expect, normally I am a heavy, deep sleeper, but we could not sleep in this environment, could we?
No. So before the day 1 of like the hike, that night before, we slept maybe 3 hours.
Yeah, maybe.
And
that was like a combination of like adrenaline and nervousness and excitement, and plus it was loud.
And
right?
Then you had to be up at like 4:30. So it was all. And then the second day, after doing our 12 hikes up, we went to bed and we still didn't sleep. I think we slept for like 2 or 3 hours. So hence why we spent 5 days sleeping.
Yeah. Like, and so I thought we'd be able to get plenty of rest. Like I'm normally like I fall asleep fast. I'm a heavy sleeper, but we didn't sleep well at all. So I'm sharing all this because, like, again, in business and life, it's inevitable that stuff's going to come up and you just got to roll with it.
You just have to go. Like we could sit there and say, okay, like complain about the sleep, but at the end of the day, it's pretty
didn't matter.
It doesn't matter. You still have to do it.
Yeah.
And then I'm like,
same with the weather.
And then I'm also really proud of us because we did that with 6 hours sleep over
2 days.
2 days.
And the other thing, when it comes to expect the unexpected, that second day, we were in the tent and we were, because of the rain, and we decided to rest, but we weren't really sleeping well. And at like 3:30 in the morning, I leaned over and I checked the weather, and there was a window where it was going to clear. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is an opportunity for us to, like, you know, get another lap or two in.
You were like, this is so exciting. We can do this. And I'm just like, no.
Yeah, you were not happy with me. And so I leaned over because I knew Amy was still awake. And I said, Amy, hey, I think we should go out and do another lap. And she's like, what time is it? I'm like, it's like 3:30 in the morning. She's like, no, we said 6. We would get up at 6. And I'm like, yeah, but babes, like, you know, with the weather, we just don't know. And there's a window where it's going to be clear. And you were like, no. And I said, okay, I'm going to be back. So I left the tent and I went.
Well, I said, if you get me something to eat, I'll think about it.
Yeah. And so I left the tent and I knew if I got her a cup of tea and some oatmeal, that would probably, be enough to get you moving. So I went to the aid station that was at the bottom of the mountain, and they said, no, we don't have oatmeal here. And I was like, oh no. And, but one of the volunteers, I got to give her a shout out. She said, but I do know that we have some oatmeal in the staff tent. She's like, let me go and see what I can do. So she leaves. She comes back and she's got the oatmeal, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're going to make me husband of the year. And so then I took that back to the tent, and I'm like, okay, Aim, like, here's your cup of tea. Like, here's some oatmeal, here's some banana. And so you started eating that, and you started to feel a little better. I started
eating it. I had chocolate in it, so that might help. And then I'm like, okay, let's go. And then we walked to the bottom of the mountain, and
this was at like 4:30 in the morning.
And volunteers like, oh, good morning, and I'm just like, don't even talk to me.
but we got another lap in, and that was probably like
that was the best.
That was crucial for us at that point. But anyway, bottom line is that, like, whether it's in business or in life, and I mean, we've learned this in the last year and a bit with COVID and everything, is to expect the unexpected and just learn to just roll with it. Like, things are never going to stop you in your tracks if you don't let them, right? And this was a big point for us, because definitely the weather could have stopped us in our tracks. The lack of sleep could have. The fact that we were slow into a snail's pace could have.
And my feet hurt.
Our feet, oh my gosh, our feet hurt like crazy.
It's like our legs weren't exactly sore. It was more our feet.
Yeah,
like
our feet just got beat up. Anyway, that's
all right.
Okay.
Chunk it down.
So
6.
Let me just quickly recap. So lesson 1 was when we grow when we do hard things. Lesson 2 is look for opportunities to grow together. Lesson 3 is slow progress is still progress. Number 4 is lean on the experiences of others. Number 5 is expect the unexpected. And number 6 on our list is chunk it down. This mentally became really important. And there were multiple ways in which we chunked this down. In total, we needed to summit the mountain 17 times. That, when you're standing at the base of the mountain, looking up at this gigantic climb, could feel tremendously overwhelming. Would you agree?
Well, yeah, that's why we chunked it down. Because if you start and you're like, wow, I've got to do this 17 times. So we chunked it down in the morning to just saying, okay, this morning I just have to do 4, or this morning I just have to do 3, or even to the point at the end where it's like, let me just finish this 1. Like, yeah, let's get through the 1. But it's making things in smaller things. Even going up the mountain, it's like, okay, I just have to get to the first aid station, and when I'm there, I have my drink, and then I do that second part. It's a bit hard, like it's a bit steeper, and then I have a little break, and then I go to the part that I hate, that like is even worse. And then so you kind of chunk it down in those little sections to get through. Yeah.
And I would say, like, we chunked it down from a high level, like from the whole event. And our chunks were like 6, 6, and 5, right? Like that was our goal, like 6, 6, and 5. And then, but as you said, even then we would chunk down each lap.
Yeah.
Or each summit.
And the harder it got, the more chunks we made.
Yeah. And like,
it felt like you had success, right? You would finish one little thing, and then you're like, yes, if I did that little thing, I can do the next little part. And then you just keep going.
And there was even funny moments, like for me, like, I don't know if this was true for you, but on the hike up, there were like for me, there was this one wooden bridge. And that was like a part of the thing. And then when I got to that bridge, I'm like, oh yeah, like we're close, but okay, how does this translate for business and life? When you're trying to accomplish big things, like, you have to chunk it down. Otherwise, inevitably, you're going to get overwhelmed and you're never going to move forward on it, right?
You don't know which way to go.
Yeah. And this was so important for us on this climb. And I just see how it parallels into business and life, especially with big, big goals. So chunking it down was really important. Okay. Yeah. Number 7.
We talked about this a little bit, but and this is what Jesse had shared the first night, was like, don't let little problems become big problems.
So, okay. So what do you mean by that? Like, what's an example of like a little problem?
So it was like me being cold on that first night was like a little problem, right? But if I climbed that night, that could have became a bigger problem. I could have gotten sick. I would have had less energy. It would have had more wet clothes. Like, it would have created a bigger problem. So it's like, fix the little problems. Like, we bought 2 or 3. Well, I bought 3 pairs of shoes. You bought 2, and we bought lots of extra clothes. And so, like, when we got sweaty,
which was more of
which
an
was-
issue for me.
You're more of an issue, and for me too. But it's like you get sweaty, and then we would go and change our clothes, so we'd have dry clothes, because that was one thing that they had said was like you don't want to sweat and stay in those sweaty clothes and then get cold. So that's a little problem, right? To just change your shirt and
Socks
change
too.
your socks, change your shoes,
Even underwear, because we started to get rash.
Yeah, all of those things that you can change, right? They're little problems because you can go to your tent, you can change quickly, and then it's done. But if it's a little problem, like your foot is like has a little sore, or it's starting to get sore, or a little blister, and you leave that little blister, then it becomes, and you keep going, it becomes really painful, right? So it was like fixing all these little things first. So we always made sure we were dry as much as we could. I mean, the rain, there was a couple of
well, even for me, like I doing it again, when I do it again, like I'm definitely going to bring more shirts.
Yeah.
Because I had essentially 3 shirts. And but I was sweating a lot, and when you get to the top, like it gets really windy and cold, and so I was basically doing three climbs, and then I'd switch out a shirt, and when I'd switch it out, like it was pretty wet, so I'd put it into the tent, and then I just kept rotating through those. So by the time I
heaters in the tent, so we turned the heater on.
Yeah, so by the time I had gone through the next 2, the first one was dry again. So I was like, that's how we were doing it. But it was an important thing, because blisters can become, nightmarish. Like getting cold like that. Like we had friends of ours that got cold.
Yeah, they did it that night and got cold and then got a bit sick.
Yeah, and it definitely, like they were saying, if they had been able to stay warm and dry, they probably would have done a lot better. So yeah, that was a big thing. Address those problems early. So let me ask you, like in your business and in your life, like are there things that are causing friction right now? It could be people, it could be circumstances, it could be whatever. Like what's causing the friction? Address it. Don't ignore it. Like address it before it becomes a bigger thing that holds you back from accomplishing, what you're trying to achieve. So that was a big one. Don't let little problems become big problems. Okay.
And your number 8 we had here is maximize your in-between time. And we did that a lot in the gondola. So every time we'd go down in the gondola, we would be eating, stretching. We had our what do you call it?
My roller.
We had a roller in the gondola.
Yeah, like
we would stretch.
This was actually, we got to give a shout out to Carrie, a dear friend of ours who's a nurse. As we were explaining to her what we were about to do, she said, one of the most important things for you guys is like that gondola ride down, which was about 15 minutes. Yeah. She said, like, use that time because your legs could stiffen up and seize up. So we were always stretching and rolling. And then the other thing that I would say about using the in-between time, this is why, when I would go ahead and get things prepped for you, we would save time there. Otherwise, I think we would have lost a lot of time in these in-between moments, like at the aid stations and the so forth.
Yeah.
And the other thing that we did was when we knew that we needed to change, like you needed to change socks or shoes or whatever, like I would run ahead. I would go faster ahead, and I'd run to the tent and I'd get those things. So again, we weren't wasting time.
Yeah.
Because, oh my gosh, you could waste so much time in the in-between moments at aid stations,
the massage table.
When you get to the top of the mountain and you're la-di-da-di-da and you're eating food in the gondola, like when you get to the bottom and you go, just go to the washroom, and then the washroom leads to grabbing like, a snack, and you're just taking forever. And before you know it, you've wasted like half an hour, 45 minutes. And over time, if you're doing that on every lap, like those hours add up, right?
You won't get it done.
So here's how this translates. One of, from a practical standpoint, what I've realized is that you can accomplish so much in these in-between moments. And oftentimes I find myself falling into the trap of waiting for the perfect time to bang out this, podcast episode, or waiting for the perfect time to call this person, or waiting for the perfect time to write this person a message, or waiting for the perfect time to map out this, lesson that I'm teaching. And the reality of it is like, as I keep waiting for all this perfect time and to set it, I could have accomplished so much of that in the in-between moments. And so I'm going to be looking to utilize more of the in-between moments more often when it comes to exercise, when it comes to getting and recording certain stuff. And
I think it's using those in-between moments, but making sure that you're not wasting that time.
Totally.
It's like using it for all those things that you could, but also being mindful of where you are spending your time. And, are you on Instagram too much? Are you on Facebook too much? Are you
guilty?
Just, we do it all the time, right?
Yeah.
You can go down these holes where all of a sudden it's like, oh, just 5 minutes turns into 20 minutes or like 30 minutes, or you're like, we all do it.
And to that point, like, it doesn't seem like a lot in the moment, but it adds up over time. And that was one of the biggest takeaways was, just how much these in-between moments add up, and we can use them to our advantage, or they can become a disadvantage. And so I'm definitely going to be making a shift in some of my just daily practices to use those in-between moments. Okay. Number 9 lesson for us was energy creates energy. So when I say to you, because we didn't discuss this before, when I say to you the mid station, what's the first thing that comes to mind as you were coming up and approaching that mid station?
The drinks.
Oh, see, that wasn't what I thought. Okay, well,
and no, the drinks. I think this is what you're maybe thinking, and the volunteer that rang the bell.
Yes, that's it. There was this amazing volunteer that at the mid station, so which is like partway up, you could hear him from
cowbell.
Like so far, and he had this cowbell, and then he'd come down and he'd meet you before he got, and he'd be cheering you on, and he'd be having conversation and ring, and he just had this infectious energy, didn't he? Yeah. And you just like you got fired up, and then similarly when you got to near the top, you could hear them from like way farther out than you could even see them.
Yeah.
And the volunteers were just amazing, like they were epic, and it just gave you energy. Like
and the volunteers and the other hikers that were there, they all
totally
had such, inspirational stories about, why they were there, who they were walking for. Just it was that energy created that energy.
It was amazing. And it just got me thinking about like how when we want energy, one of the best things that we can do is to put out energy. If you want, positivity, put out positivity. And so I just, for me, like, I'm so grateful to those volunteers. Like there was a woman volunteer at the top, her name was Lola. And there was a moment when I was pretty down in the dumps because when we were hiking at 4 a.m, my headlamp went out. And so I had to MacGyver my iPhone, if you can believe it. Like I put my light on my iPhone, stuck it in my hat. And I was trailing this other guy named Dave. He was so gracious to allow me to kind of borrow his light, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But I was feeling really down in the dumps because it was still dark. And I get to the top and I'm just like, oh man, like this is going to be a nightmare trying to navigate up the mountain again with just my iPhone. And Lola, she's just like, here. She's like, I got an extra headlamp. Like, take it. Like, that's not going to stop you. And she just gave me her like headlamp. And it was just, again, her energy and generosity. I was just like, oh my gosh, like, thank you. And so it made a difference because then we had light again and we were back up again. And when the light, the daylight came, obviously I gave her her headlamp back, but just that energy, that infectious energy, that positivity, it was amazing. And
like you said, you need to put it out. And oftentimes we might, complain or say, oh, I haven't got this or that, and it's like, but what are you putting out to the world? Like, who are you attracting? Who are you surrounding yourself with? Like, you got to be mindful of that.
So I just, energy creates energy. If you want positive energy in your life, put out positive energy. That's probably the biggest takeaway from that. Okay. Number 10, stay fueled.
Now this was like really hard because I'm a big tea drinker. I drink so much tea. You think I drink more. I don't think I drink as much as you.
You definitely do.
But I do drink a lot of tea, and I always struggle with drinking water. I've tried like everything. I've tried it with lemons. I've tried it with orange, like all the kinds of things you can imagine. But water and me are not great friends. I've tried to be best friends with water, but it doesn't work. So I was really worried about that going in, that we weren't hydrated enough. But they do a great job at the event of having every possible, drink you could have, water, like all of this,
even stuff. Little shots of it, so it's easy to consume.
So it's little cups, like they did a really great job of that. So definitely.
And I would say the other thing, and this was shout out to Jamie Bright, who gave us this advice. She just said, like, when your legs start to feel tired, have a salt pill. because getting that sodium back into your body like really, really helps. And it was
I've
so
never-
true.
I've
And we had
had
never done
before.
that. So we started doing that. And like, as you said before, like it wasn't really our legs that,
My legs
you know,
were
got tired. Like
It was the feet.
it was our feet. So, and we attribute that to staying fueled. And we had,
Yeah.
we would always have something at each aid station. We would always have something in the gondola. We broke for, you know, a proper lunch and dinner, and really keeping ourselves fueled.
I get hangry, and can you imagine me doing that on my shirt?
Yeah, that would have been a nightmare. But staying fueled is really, really important. Okay, number 11
We
was,
kind of talked about this a bit. Visual milestones that motivate.
yeah, visual milestones motivate. Now, I don't know what you do in your business specifically, but if you are looking to help people do something, one of the things that I highly recommend is that you have milestones in between, you know, when they start and when they finish the goal. And the more visual you can make these milestones, the better. And I'll give you a couple of examples from this event that were just like, for me, really pulled me through the whole experience. One, and this you told me this, that it didn't really impact you. But for me, like every time you completed a lap,
oh yeah,
you got to burn the logo in like this like board. And it you know, visually was like, for me, it was just a sense of accomplishment. Like, boom, we finished it and we burn it in, and it just like, it felt good. Now for you, you said it didn't make any impact whatsoever.
I don't know. It's weird, right? I don't know why. I mean, it felt good, but I couldn't be, but like if Stu wanted to do it, they could do it. Or it didn't really, you know, I liked seeing it, but there wasn't really, it didn't
motivate.
It
It motivated the heck out of me. For me, that was like a sense of accomplishment. Another thing that they did was, when you were about to start your final climb, like your final ascent, you switched out from a white bib to a red bib, which indicated to everybody on the mountain like that you were on your final climb. Now you definitely got energy from that
because it's like your final one.
Yeah, and like you were fired up about that. Your total mood changed. Like you could see it in the Instagram stories. Like if you followed along, like Amy went from I'm hating this sucks to like yahoo, like she had like so much energy. So that was really cool. And then another visual milestone they had was when you got to the top of that final climb, they had red hats on a board that you got to grab, and that was like the you know, the final
what
thing.
I love about that though too is, and we were talking about what a great strategy that is for business, is those red hats that you get at the end. So ours are in our car, but it's like they don't sell those anywhere else. You can't buy them anywhere else.
Yeah.
So they are only given to people that do complete the climb. So we thought that was just a really cool.
It was really cool. And it just got me thinking about like, you know, especially in our business. And I see Janelle mentioned the success path. Yes, the success path. Same with Paulette. I just think like, how can we create visual milestones for people? Because the visual aspect of it really motivated and pulled people through. And like, even when people were were ahead of us and they were on their final lap, like we'd be coming down in the gondola and we could see all the red bibs and we're like yelling, you know, cheering them on. It was really motivating. And so anyways, it's got me thinking about like, how can we create more visual milestones, particularly for our audience? And
well, for our audiences, because a lot of businesses we work with are virtual, right? Or they, you know, we're in a virtual kind of online space where it's a bit different.
Okay.
All right, last one.
The last one.
Let
me. I'm going to recap them all at the end, in case you're just jumping on. And thank you to everybody who's you know, sharing and commenting. We appreciate you guys. So last one, number 12. Who you listen to matters. My friends, so much of success in business and in life is all up here. And I would say this challenge, was about 40% physical, 60% mental. Would you agree?
Yeah. And because I remember that when we got there too, one of the trainers had said that it's, you know, it's anybody can do it. You just have to have the mindset for it.
Yeah.
Right. You just, and it was like, and it is, it's all mindset.
And it's like, it's so crazy too, because, you know, I don't know if you experienced this on the mountain, Amy, but I certainly did. But you'd have this like chatter that would start creeping in, and it was like,
You know that I did.
well, I
You're
think
being
that's
kind.
I think that's for you to say, not me for today. But like there's all this chatter that starts creeping in, and if you end up getting around people who have the same negative chatter, it's inevitable that you're going to come to a screeching halt.
Mm-hmm.
But like, here's an example. We're on our 13th climb, and it is pouring rain, and we are
like puddles in our shoes,
like puddles in the shoes,
completely wet.
The mountain is just like a sloppy mess, and I'm soaked all the way through. So I had my jacket on, I'm soaked all the way through, and
even we didn't have our good rain jackets on then. We didn't have our raincoats.
But anyway, I'm soaked all the way through. Mm-hmm. And in my mind, the negative chatter starts to come in, which is like, oh man, this is really starting to get uncomfortable. My shoes are soaked. Like my feet I'm going to get blisters soon because they're going to start like wearing. And then I started thinking about you because I was a little bit ahead. I'm like, oh gosh, like Amy's definitely, she's not going to want to continue. And how am I going to navigate that conversation? Am I going to continue without her? Am I not going to continue without her? Like, that's going to be awkward. Like, how are we going to come to that? And I got to the aid station, and one of the coaches, Chris, was there. And I said to him, I said, this could be the nail in the coffin. And he just looked at me and he's like, no, it's not. And that was the end of the conversation. And I think
oh, he saw my determination a few times.
No, but but what I'm saying is like, who you listen to matters, right? Like, and so in that moment, it was just like, it was a complete shift of mindset. Like, I had all that negative chatter as I was coming into the aid station, and then with one comment, like, boom, it like just shifted. It was like, oh no, of course I'm going to finish this. Of course we're going to finish this. And you came in and you were angry and you were ticked off. And I was like, oh gosh. So like gave you your tea, and we
you make me, when I was angry, I was angry, but I was not like shouting at people or like being angry. My facial expressions fully expressed that
you didn't have to
not enjoy.
Yeah. So I was going to say, you didn't have to yell or say anything because your face certainly expressed how you were feeling. But in that moment, Chris, the coach, he was pacing people, and he's like, okay, guys, he's like, we've been under this tent. We've been trying to wait out the rain, but it's not going to stop. He's like, and so we got to go. So he said, I'm going to go in 2 minutes. So, and then as soon as he said that, there was like a few people that left. And then there was a few more that left. And in that, you're like, oh man.
And then I'm the last one.
Yeah. We're like, we got to go. Like, we got to go. Like, we're not stopping now. And that's why like who we surround ourselves with is so important, because it is so easy to listen to that negative chatter. It's so easy to succumb to that negative chatter. But when you're around people who are committed to a goal and are moving forward and are positive, like, it's inevitable that rubs off on you.
Yeah. You just go.
Okay. So
let's recap.
Let's give you a quick recap,
because we got to go catch our flight.
Number 1, we grow when we do hard things. Seek out those hard things in your business and in your life, because you grow from those experiences and you come away, with a bigger sense of what's possible for you and all that you're doing.
Yeah. Number 2, look for opportunities to grow together. So look for opportunities to grow as a couple, as a team, whatever it may be, but look for hard opportunities to grow together.
Yeah, the bond gets deepened and you go further faster. Number 3, slow progress is still progress. So often we give up because we don't think we're moving fast enough, or we're not accomplishing as much as we want. But the whole goal and the whole thing with this mountain climb was that even though on the second day we were moving at a snail's pace, we were still moving. And had we not continued moving, we would not have accomplished this thing. No. And the same is true for you and I and other aspects of business and life, is that we got to keep moving forward. Slow progress is still progress as long as you are moving forward.
And number 4, lean in the experience of others.
Say it loud.
Lean into the experience of others. So, we've got to learn from other people to get what we want in life or to progress. So we leaned into the coaches that were there and learned about the equipment we should have, what we should eat, how we should hydrate.
We lean into the alumni, their experiences of being on this exact mountain before and how they navigated certain situations. And so this is why like finding coaches and mentors who have been there, who have done it. This is why like being in a community of others who are on that same journey is so valuable. So you can, take and glean from the experiences of others.
Do you want to do 5?
Number 5, expect the unexpected. It's inevitable that stuff is going to come up that you can't plan for, didn't expect. And if you are open to that reality beforehand, when it happens, it's like you just move through it. It's like no big deal.
You just roll with it.
You just roll with it. But if you are so set in stone that it has to go a certain way, it has to play out, then you're going to be disappointed and you're going to get thrown off if things don't go according to
the opportunity.
Yeah. So expect the unexpected.
All right. Number 6, chunk it down. Chunk it down. When I was climbing up that mountain, we all know, and we shared it here, this was not my thing. And I hated it halfway through. Like love, hate. Stu loved it. I hated it at some points. And, so I would chunk it down and get to the first part, get to the second part, get up that little hard part that I really don't like and get to the next part. So breaking it down. And
we even got to the point where we would chunk it down. Like we would take like 10 steps or so, and then we'd stop. Yeah. And we'd take 10 steps and then we'd stop.
And at the end, it was take 2 steps and stop.
But chunk it down. Super important. So whatever you're working on, whatever big goal you're looking to achieve, like how can you chunk it down even more to make it more feasible? Number 7. My favorite
ones that we're sharing from Jesse Itzler that was there that said the first night, and it's so true. So you want to share that one?
He said, don't let little problems become big problems. Don't let little problems become big problems. This could have blown up. We could have gotten major blisters. We could have got hypothermia. We could have got dehydrated. Don't let little problems become big problems. Address them right away. And I think of how this translates so well to business and life. Like when you are perhaps, working with different people where it's, it feels like there's friction, or there's parts of the business that just feel awkward and you feel anxiety around it, or, something in terms of timing for the calendar is not working. It always seems to create conflict. Address these things before they become bigger problems.
Because they will become bigger problems. Right?
Yeah.
Number 8, maximize your in-between time. So pay attention to what you're doing in between activities, in between things you're working on for work or your business. Like we going down in the gondola, we were eating and stretching and using those little in-between moments to have a more successful climb. So just paying attention to those little in-between.
And this is probably one of the ones that practically is going to have the most impact for me, like following this whole experience, because I tend to wait for the perfect time to do things, and there is no perfect time. And what I need to utilize more are the in-between moments. You're really good at this. You do this naturally anyway. I not so much. So I really want to use the in-between times to make those phone calls, to map out that lesson, to record that podcast, whatever it might be. That's where I'm going to be really looking to utilize that. Okay, number 9, energy creates energy. If you want positive energy in your life, put out positive energy.
You gotta put it out.
Yeah. And so I just can't emphasize this enough, because, the volunteers and the staff throughout the participants and from this experience were all people that we would love to be around on a regular basis, because they just exuded that positive energy. They were striving and committed to reaching goals. And they were we were all cheering each other on.
They all had very similar values and like outlook in life.
It was just a great environment to be in. And when you're in the dumps and then all of a sudden you come across somebody who's just ringing the cowbell and cheering you on, you're like, yeah, I can do this. And it was just changed the energy completely. So energy creates energy.
Number 10, stay fueled. So make sure you're fueling your body with all the good stuff, right? And on our hike, it was all about the water and some of the energy drinks and the salt tablets. But I think when it comes down to life and business, it's making sure we're fueling our body with all the right things, like, and being, intentional about what we're putting into our body and taking care of our body.
Because in transparency, this is probably one of my weaknesses too. This, like, if I'm left alone, I tend to just like put my head down and work and not eat, not drink. Like, and you're always, saying to me, like, you got to eat, you got to eat, you got to eat. And it made a huge difference on this climb, because there's no way that we would have been able to accomplish it had we not been constantly fueling ourselves.
If you don't fuel your body, there was no way.
Totally.
Nobody could do that on no.
And then number 11, visual milestones motivate. This one is more of a lesson for me to implement in our community. And that's why I'm passing it on to you, because I know obviously you're most likely doing the same thing. And that is, if we're helping people accomplish something, I want to have more visual milestones that visually motivate and pull people through the experience of implementing and accomplishing. So in this case, like, they had, like, the board where you burn in each time you finished a summit, or they had the red bib or the red hat when you accomplished. Like, it was just so many visual milestones. It was really motivating and really pulled you through the whole experience. And then the last one, number 12.
Who you listen to matters. So who you listen to matters. It matters a lot.
We've got to surround ourselves with people that are, doing amazing things in this world. Like, it's so easy to get, sucked into the negative whirlwind of all the things that are going on in the world. But I don't know. This one was, as we said, we so appreciated the environment and the people. And I want to encourage all of us to make sure that we are taking inventory of who we are around, who we're listening to. What is their energy? Is it, draining your energy, or is it, giving you energy?
I think it's also making sure, being purposeful with, like, making those connections with people, like going out to where you want to meet new people that maybe you can connect with, and trying to seek out those relationships or seek out those.
And being intentional about distancing yourself from those who are negative and those who are draining your energy, and being intentional about that, because energy management, I think, is a big part of this whole thing, right? And people matter. People really matter. I love that Paulette says your tribe matters. 100%. Okay.
We have like 5 minutes. If anyone has any questions, let us know. We'd be more than happy to answer. And then we've got to head to the airport.
Yeah, you're the practical one that's got to get us to the airport on time.
Well, our kids are waiting. I'm very excited.
Okay, that's true. Okay, so you look here, I'll look here, and I'll see if there's some questions that we can answer. Let's see here.
No, maybe not.
Paulette said, it's amazing how negative chatter can change your attitude so fast. What do you guys do to stop it in its tracks? What are your thoughts here, I was going to call you Marla because we're just talking about our kids. What are your thoughts here, Amy, about, like, stopping that negative chatter?
I think you have to acknowledge what you're saying and then reframe it to a different story. So, because it's not going to go away, I think you have to acknowledge that you said those things and then reframe it to a more positive story or a more positive affirmation.
Yeah. And Paulette, I think Amy hit it the nail on the head. Reframing is a skill set. And the more you can develop that skill set, the easier it is to let that negative chatter, whether it's your own or whether it's others, bounce right off you. Like, I'll give you an example of one of the reframes that I had. When it was pouring rain in the morning and we were soaked all the way through, the good news was that it was still relatively warm, right? Like, it wasn't freezing cold like it was, during the night. And so I kept saying to myself, I'm like, Stu, this is like having a hot water bottle on you. And I'm like, yeah, you're soaked through, but it's like a cozy hot water bottle.
What would be so interesting is, like, going back. So that was what you were thinking in your head. And then that I'm thinking, like, it was totally different. I was not being very positive in that moment.
Laura said, how did the mountain climb go? That's what we've been talking about, buddy. Loria,
really well.
It was amazing. It was probably one of the most epic experiences that we've had together. And I'm committed to doing it again in 2022. I'm going to do the Whistler one in Whistler, Canada. And PS, like if any of you want to do it with me, let me know. Reach out to me, send me a direct message, because I've got 15 spots reserved before they go on sale to the public, which it's going to sell out in no time because it's a whole new thing. But I want to do this with you and others in our community. But it was amazing. It was amazing. Really it was really, really cool.
Very hard, but totally worth it.
Okay, let's see. Paulette said, "What is our next adventure?"
We've been talking about that. That's funny. We're actually spent some time planning. We haven't got it totally down yet.
And Colin actually asked the same thing. He said, "What challenge is next for you both?"
I know.
Well, I kind of alluded to it. For me, like,
yeah,
I've committed to doing the Everest climb again in 2022. So it'll be, I think it's September 22nd through the 25th in Whistler, BC. So that's on my radar. And one of the things that we didn't talk about here was I absolutely loved preparing and training for this thing. Like I needed this, especially during COVID. Like it was for my mental health. It was really well. It was yeah, I needed it. So
well, thank you guys.
Okay, hang on. Okay. Cheryl said, "How much time ahead of the deadline did you finish?" Oh, good question.
Well, that's a great question. And to be totally open, Stu would have finished like probably in the top 10. Like you would have finished within 24 hours. I think he's that much faster than me. So we finished, the deadline was 6 p.m. We finished at 3.
No. We finished at 3:45
or 4.
Yeah. So a little, like we had a little over 2 hours buffer.
And we stopped. So we stopped in there during that night time for about 5 hours.
Yeah. But had we not gotten up, this is something that we said, had we not gotten up at 4 a.m, we likely would not have made it.
I think we would have made it, but it would have been, we would have finished the race with me looking even more grumpier than I did halfway through it, because it would have been stressful and it wouldn't have been, I think because at the end I was going up so slow, I was enjoying it too a little bit. It was like you would go and stop and go, and there wasn't the pressure to get there because I knew that we were going to make it, right? But if we had left it and we had that pressure to get up to the top of the mountain before 6 p.m., that would have been friction, and it wouldn't have been very fun.
No, it wouldn't have. It would have created a lot of pressure. So
it was good that we finished it a bit before.
Thank you for all the comments. Claudia over on Instagram, I appreciate you, buddy. That's super sweet of you to say that. Dale said, what do you mean? They had a nighttime climb? Yeah. Oh, buddy, there was
a start and a finish. And so for 36 hours, the gondola started and then it ran all night, and you could climb as many as you wanted throughout the night. But we ran into, like we mentioned a bit earlier, a ton of rain, a lot of mud, and the temperature dropped quite quick. So we didn't hike as much at night than we wanted to.
Let's see here. Paulette asked, how did your kids manage with your training and success, and how will you celebrate this with your family?
Yeah, well, the kids see us on the Peloton a lot.
Yeah, they definitely they saw us training.
And we walk them. We do a lot of walking with them. So, but how are we going to celebrate? I don't know.
We've kind of been celebrating together. I think it's more of a celebration of us together.
I think their celebration is us coming home today with the little gifts that we have for them.
Yeah, they're pretty stoked for that. Let's see here. Yeah, Claudia said lesson 13, plan so you finish ahead of schedule. Yeah. You definitely got to have.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Loria said she wants details on next year's climb. Buddy, that would be amazing to have you on there. That would be so much fun. So definitely I'll send me a message, send me a direct message, Loria, and then I'll shoot you the details. But all right. So that's a wrap. So real quick.
And one thing I would just say, because we try to get away as a couple, every quarter or so. And we haven't been able to do that a lot with COVID and just life and things. But we've realized this, whenever you take time as a couple, a weekend is okay. But that sweet spot really is 3 to 5 days. Like for us to completely shut down, it really took you a bit longer. It took you about 3 days to completely just shut off. And that's what we've done. The last 5 days we were joking, we've had more massages than we've had in the last 2 years. We've been in the spa, we've slept, I've snored.
Oh,
so
Amy's
much.
like a little chainsaw these days.
It tells me that I needed that rest. So I just encourage you guys as entrepreneurs to do these fun, exciting things, but also take that time as a couple and take that extra day, because those 3 to 5 days, it's been amazing. Like, we've done literally nothing.
And we've thoroughly enjoyed Vermont. We had never been to Vermont before. Beautiful. It is so beautiful. It is like, gorgeous this time of year with all the trees. And so we've enjoyed the time, and I've been grateful for it. And now I'm super fired up to get back. I'm super fired up to like dive into work. My brain has just been like on fire from a creative standpoint, and I'm excited. I'm excited about what's to come, and we're super pumped to see our kids. Like, it's been a week.
No, they're excited. I'm excited. And it's really kind of weird traveling with COVID now, because it's like you have to have all these tests. So we had to have another test right before we fly today. And there was a moment of like, oh no, like we're feeling great, but what happens if it comes back positive? And then we have to tell our kids, oh, I'm sorry, we're not going to be back for another week and a half. But thankfully it didn't. And we're feeling wonderful, and I'm very grateful for that. But it's a whole new traveling world now a little bit.
Definitely is.
Anyway.
All right, my friends, you're amazing. You're amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hopefully I'll see you on a challenge. Keep me posted on whatever challenge that you're going to do that's going to push you out of your comfort zone. This was definitely one that we thoroughly enjoyed. Well, maybe not in the midst of it. Amy didn't really enjoy it.
No, but I did enjoy it. Like, don't get me wrong. It was the hardest thing I've done. And I didn't enjoy all of it, but I'm glad I did it. Absolutely glad I did it. And so thankful that they put on this event, and grateful that we did it together. Absolutely. But I'm also not going to be here to say that I was smiling every single second that I climbed that mountain.
No, you weren't. But there were a few moments of happiness. But I think but to your point though, I think it's the end result, which is like accomplishing something hard, doing hard things. It makes you a better person. You come away from this, you come away from this just vibrating on a different level. And I'm super pumped, super excited about all the things that are ahead. And I'm grateful to the whole 29029 team, Jesse, Colin, and everybody on the team. It was amazing. So anyways, you're awesome. We'll talk soon, and we'll see you later. Bye.